Liv, and we're your meta PsycKicks.
So, we're going to be covering time travel, and if you wanted to learn about time travel, this is not the video for you.
I'm gonna need some coffee to energize this entire video.
Because I 100% do not understand any of the things that I researched. However, hi, we're psychic mediums, and we like to do this weird thing where one of us does all of the research of a scary, paranormal, spiritual topic, and the other person does absolutely nothing. So this video is actually going to be two psychic mediums' interpretations of time travel. Are you excited? You need a piece of paper. Also, I can give you a hint. You should try talking to Einstein.
I was gonna say, is there a man that you were talking to? But he doesn't look like Einstein. He has brown hair and he's wearing a brown tweed suit, and he like talks like he's from the 30s or 40s.
I don't know who I was talking to because, like I said, I don't understand what I was reading.
Oh. Well,
but
was there a man besides Einstein?
But time travel, okay, there's a lot of different ideas surrounding time travel, but the main one is how it is related to general relativity. That is one of the ideas that Einstein created.
Yeah.
And you've already talked to Einstein, so I was like, here's your hint.
Got it.
Because time travel is a lot, and it goes into like things, you know? Okay, Liv. What did they tell you?
I saw a man in a brown suit who may or may not have been talking to you.
Is he young Einstein?
No, I don't think so.
Just a guess.
He might have been like one of his students or something. And then maybe a little bit of Einstein. I think Einstein was giving me the like silly parts of it because he's like, you're very smart, but you don't think that you're smart.
Yeah.
Type of thing. Like he's like,
Sure.
Everybody can be smart and everybody is smart, but you just have to like believe in it first and then it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I was coming into this and I was like, hopefully, Emily, I'm not going to be too much of like a D-bag because I think time travel's a load of malarkey, personally.
Oh, it's different than you would think.
Because I'm like, how can somebody, because I know everybody that's watching this is going to be like, time travel physically. And the only way that I can understand time travel is like mentally or spiritually when I
time traveling right now.
To souls. Okay, well, after what they had me write down, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
But I just want everyone to know that before I talked to the souls that made me
thought it was bullshit.
Write this down, which usually when I talk to souls, they don't make me write entire dissertation paragraphs and like diagrams. It's just bullet points of information, so it's funny. But I thought time travel is not possible or cannot be possible unless it's like you talking to a soul from a different period or traveling there in some way, shape, or form more mentally than physically. And they just explained to me how theoretically it can be possible physically. And if Em says that technically we're time traveling right now, which I hate you, I get it.
We're traveling 1 second per second. Sorry.
Yeah, I hate you. So anyways, they explained to me how it's physically possible. So tell me if this, in layman's terms, if I can explain it.
Hopefully it explains it to me.
With this is better. So, in science, you learn about systems, and systems are usually a controlled space, like a thermos. So, in this scenario, systems, if we're thinking about it in a thermos, is what keeps in heat, which is entropy. So, keeping in heat or keeping something at constant temperature is what the inside of the system is. The outside of the system is what can influence the system. So if you put your thermos in a snowbank, that is going to affect the internal system of the thermos itself. Make sense?
Yeah.
So a system can be a thermos and the environment around it is what enacts changes on the heat increase or loss of said system.
Okay.
So in this system, we're going to talk about a person that is looking into mirrors. That's what they showed me first. Mm-hmm. So I'll show you like a little picture if you want. Yeah, because we're gonna have to talk about a system, which is gonna be a person in a bathroom with a front mirror and a back mirror and a light bulb. But in this scenario, the external environment, what's gonna influence the system of the person in the room, this is a mere mortal, is going to be the light itself. So, yeah. The way they explain this to me is, think of a reflection in a mirror. Light refraction causes a delay in the perception of the person. So if you're already looking at yourself in a mirror, front and back, when you put your hand up, you're going to see a whole bunch of reflections of yourself in the mirror. But technically speaking, if you were to change, I hate that there's a hawk flying through your backyard right now. If you change where the light is happening, light dictates time and how your eyes are able to perceive things. So if you move your hand, depending on how the light changes, it's going to change your perception of how your hand moves or how it's moving in time and space. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so changing the perception of the light on the subject in the standards is what's going to change how you perceive the person. So this is going to impact the system of the experiment, the system being you in a room of a mirror with 2 mirrors. So I put, technically, time does not exist without light. So without light, time would not exist, and neither would existence itself. Because if you think about it, without the sun and light, we wouldn't have any sort of ecological, biological thing at all. It would just be dark and dirty. So I put, so light must play a pivotal and physical role in existence itself. So without life, there wouldn't be physicality. So light and the role it plays must enact a physical phenomenon on physicality itself. So light must dictate the existence of physicality from a like macro level of everything being big to a micro level itself, such as like atoms and particles and the things that make you up. So light dictates the physicality. So I put, like where a control must change for a system to be altered, such as whatever is being controlled, the control in this scenario is going to be the light bulb in the room and the system is you. The control has to be altered, so the light bulb has to change, or the light that's influencing the subject, which is you, is going to have to change for the system to change, which is you. So the light bulb, which is the control, has to change in order for you and your perception of yourself to change in the room. So like where the control must change for a system to be altered, we must think about the control being light, which when altered in the right way can change the system, and the system being physicality, or you in the room. So we must first understand the physical ways in which light alters physicality, which is going to be space, because space is physicality. And when I talk about space, I mean like the space you take up, the air you breathe is space. All of everything that's physical is space. So first we must understand the physical ways in which light alters physicality of space, and then the constraints in which light exists to influence it. So the constraints in which light or time exists to influence physicality. So we need to understand how light alters space, and then we need to understand the constraints in which light or time exists to influence physicality itself. And that is the theory of relativity. What is it that between space and time is relative to one another? So if we can understand how light impacts physicality, if we change the circumstances in which light exists around the subject or the physical space itself, then you can put it back or alter it to the existence around it of when light existed at that time.
Okay, so then is time travel possible?
Theoretically, maybe. You'd have to understand how light not only impacts you as a subject to the physical molecular level, but also understand depending on what space and time you want to go to, you'd have to understand how light existed at that point in time in order for you to physically match it itself. Because I was like, how is it that you can go back in time physically? You have to go fast enough, because it's the speed of light, to match a certain point in time at which the speed in light was happening.
Yeah,
so that the particles of your existence itself matched the speed of light at which the time frame you want to exist at was applicable.
Yep.
So that's what they told me, and that's how it's physically possible. Because I'm like, you'd have to change the particulate molecular structure of a human being to do that physically. But how do you do that? You do it with light. But light is also speed, and it's relative to space and time.
Yep.
That is what Einstein told me. I've
Or
never
someone.
taken a physics class in my entire life. Literally entire life.
Well, do you know what relativity is?
Yeah, relativity.
Okay, so you knew that beforehand. He didn't explain it to you.
He explained it to me, yes.
Oh, okay, that's what I was asking.
Because he had a, so I've heard that Einstein figured out the theory of relativity by using a train model of, if you are standing at a point in time at a train station and someone is passing you on the train station, how is it that you both exist at the same point in time? However, the train person is traveling faster than you are. But in our reality, that's relative to the subject. So, yeah, he told me that he was able to figure that out by lucid dreaming and able to change constantly the constraints of the experiment in which he was employing in his subconscious or creative conscious, as Em and I call it.
Yeah.
Which is really hard to do in physicality. So the fact that this man just figured out that he could lucid dream to have experimental control constraints is like mind-blowing.
So you ready for the backstory?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay, so there are a lot of different ideas surrounding time travel in regards to philosophy, physics, quantum physics, etc. But what we're going to be talking about today is specifically Einstein's theories of general relativity. So first off, what is time travel? Time travel is the concept of movement between certain points in time in regards to the movement between different points in space by an object or a person, typically with the use of a hypothetical device known as a time machine.
Which is just an overpowered microwave.
Yeah, you should probably not go in a microwave. Don't do this at home, kids.
Unless you're a peep and it's Easter time.
You should definitely not do that if you're a peep. You will get microwaved. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, you are in fact right now time traveling at 1 second per second, because it deals with different gravitational pulls, but it also deals with the speed in which you are moving. So we are existing at 1 second per second within our own idea of time.
What if I run faster? Backwards.
I can't. That's the part that hurts my brain, so I can't tell you.
Got it. Do we have to go the opposite way the Earth
I
turns?
don't know. So, Einstein found that the faster you move through space, the slower you move through time. So, you age more slowly, or in other words, hold on. This is the stuff that like blows my fucking mind, and I don't actually need to read it because I know what I'm about to say. Okay, so Einstein basically figured out that the faster you move through time, the slower time works for you, which makes absolutely no freaking sense to me whatsoever. So and I've been trying to figure this out for a while.
I can explain it to you.
But the idea is, if you're in a spaceship and the spaceship is moving like at the speed of light, and you are going to a planet that was, say, 10 light years away, okay? And you're moving at the speed of light. Logically, you would think that you would get there in 10 years. However,
10 minutes.
in the spaceship, you would get there, it would feel like 3 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that literally blows my mind. And it's called something in regards to like time dilation, which I will get into, but I also wrote a long dissertation about all the things that I understand as a psychic medium.
Wait, can I
This
explain
man.
it to you?
Okay.
Okay, so wait, say the thing again.
What thing?
Say that if you're moving faster.
No, if you are moving at the speed of light.
No, the very first thing, not the rocket ship thing.
Oh. Einstein found that the faster you move through space, the slower you move through time.
The faster you move through space, the slower you move through time. So, if we're talking about the theory of relativity, which is space with time, what's happening when he means that is, if you're moving faster, You yourself are moving faster through your space, but the time that exists or constrains your existence is moving at a different time. So your aging process is going to be different than the time of your surroundings. So if you're supposedly in the rocket ship, your body is going to be existing at a certain aging process, but the space in which you're moving relative to the time of your body is going to be faster. So you getting there in 10 years, your body's actually only going to age 3 years, because the 10 years that it takes you to go through 10 light years, your body is only existing at a certain time. Does that make sense?
No.
No? Okay, so like you, right?
Yeah.
You're in a plane.
Yeah.
And you're going to, where did we go? Nevada?
Yeah.
So even though it took us like 3 hours to get there,
Yeah.
your body is aging at a different time.
Why?
Because your body exists
Yeah.
at its own time clock. Okay, imagine the people.
But how does it change the time?
What do you mean?
Wouldn't I still exist at 1 second per second?
In this space and time of you moving right now, but if you change the seconds of how you're traveling in conjunction to the seconds of how your body is existing, that's different.
Why?
Imagine the people in the spaceship as a clock,
Yeah.
right? And the clock is moving at a certain tick, right?
Okay.
How fast you're moving in the spaceship. Imagine the spaceship. Okay, it's not the spaceship, but imagine you are traveling in a clock, and you're a clock inside of a clock. Got it?
No.
The space, the final
Time.
frontier,
Space
is going to
time.
be one giant clock.
Okay.
And it's going to be the clock that goes tick, tick, tick. Got it?
Okay.
Okay. And then you're going to be a tinier clock in that. And you exist at a tick, tick, tick. Got it?
Okay.
So when you're traveling in the big clock, you're going super, super fast. Your body is.
Okay.
You are going this way. But your body itself is still just a clock. Tick, tick, tick.
Okay.
But if you influence the speed at which the little clock is traveling through the big clock, that is going to influence the big clock speed. So instead of going tick, 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 like your little clock inside the big clock, it's going to be going wah! So,
But why?
because you're going faster. It influences the time of your surroundings, but not the time of you.
Why?
So
I
you're
don't
going.
understand how traveling from one place physically to another place affects your time.
It doesn't though. That's the thing.
That's why I'm confused.
Because if you're in a plane,
Yeah.
you're still aging at the same rate.
Yeah.
You're gonna have the same wrinkle as when you got on the plane versus when you got off the plane. The only thing changing is everything around you is moving a lot faster, but you yourself are not moving faster. So the clock inside the clock, the little clock, which is you, is still ticking 1, 2, 3. However, the time at which the big clock that you're traveling through is ticking is going, yeah! So when you get to your point in space and time, your little clock is not changing. It's still going tick, 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 but everything around you is going way faster, which is why it only feels like 3 days for you, but it's 10 whatever for everything outside of your space.
Oh.
Got it?
Maybe.
Yeah. Your clock ticks slower, even if you ramp up the talk ticking around you.
Yes, so this is something called time dilation. And essentially what time dilation is it occurs when two different clocks show a different elapsed time. So time dilation is a physical phenomenon in which time moves differently for different observers in the same inertial frame. So in time dilation, time moves slower for an observer who is in motion relative to another observer. To a stationary observer, a moving clock will tick slower than the one the observer is holding. So there's two different constraints to time dilation, and the first one is the speed in which an individual is moving. So this is the thing that we're talking about right now. If you're moving at a very high speed, your time is moving slower than someone that is stationary in one spot.
Which is why flights seem like they take forever.
But in fact, you could be in a car for 20 million years instead of a plane. However, Einstein also figured out that time dilation is also based around gravitational pulls of things. So they did experiments on time dilation surrounding the idea of it being in regards to like gravitational pull. So the satellites have to compensate for time dilation effects due to both of the high altitude and their faster speed. So if you had a clock on a satellite, the clock would tick at a different time speed than it would here. So when they have time in regards to satellites, they have to account for time dilation. So it is surrounding, again, the speed of an individual that creates time dilation and the gravitational pull on said time person individual.
Oh, so satellites?
Well, satellites are farther away from us.
Yeah.
And they have a different gravitational pull because they are higher up altitude-wise.
And the Earth is rotating independently of where it's positioned in space.
And they are moving at a different speed than we are.
So freaking cool. It gets me real excited.
So they have to literally calculate it. So whenever you use a GPS feature on your smartphone that uses satellites, your car has to like figure out what the time difference is because there's slight differences due to time dilation.
Yeah, you have to figure out where your car is in relation to the satellite that's giving you that information.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so cool!
So that's how they prove, or one of the reasons how they prove time dilation is an actual thing, and it is based upon A, the way in which you are moving, how fast, and B, your gravitational pull. So I don't know if this makes sense, and you should ask him. You know how bigger things like giants seem to be moving slower than we are? Is that a thing? Is that what time dilation is?
Yeah, because they take up more space, so their space relative to ours, even though it's in the same plane of existence, is going to look like it's moving slower because the same amount of force it takes for them to move that much mass is going to seem like it takes more time because it takes up more space. So
Time
space
dilation.
and time, relative.
Time dilation.
Oh, God!
So at this point, I was talking apparently to this man that only speaks claircognizantly because I was talking to someone, but I didn't see them. They just were giving me information.
He also only drinks black coffee.
Important things.
Mm-hmm.
So what I wrote down is it appears that time travel is affected by the speed of an individual through space and the surrounding gravity of that space. So that's what I just described to you. So it is based upon different frequencies. So as a psychic medium and also talking about parallel universes, Liv was talking about the Big Bang and how the Big Bang had, what did you call them when they go? Pew,
Quantum
pew.
fluctuations?
Quantum fluctuations. To me, as a medium, the way I interpret that is it created the different spaces for the dimensions because it would be moving at a different frequency per second. So light, they talk about light speed a lot. Light is what dictates our time in the physical dimension. It is the frequency of physicality. So that is why we're talking about the speed of light and how light affects our surroundings and body and all of that stuff. So light is the frequency of physicality. And because of that, that is how time works here. But if we were able to step out of time or be able to move faster than the speed of light, then we would be on a different vibrational frequency, which would be like a different dimension. So us as a physical being, one of the things that I found in my research is that we cannot move faster than the speed of light. We can go 99% of the speed of light, but we cannot surpass the speed of light. That creates restrictions on us as physical beings in being able to like time travel and affect things in a negative manner. However, if we were a spiritual being that vibrates on a higher vibrational level, aka the dimensions above us, we have the ability to step out of time and then jump back in wherever we want. However, they also have different restrictions. So the thing that I talk to you guys about a lot is I view time as a stream. And what I mean by a stream, like a stream or a river. So us as physical beings, we are in the river and we are being pushed by the current, which is the speed of light. Light is continuing forward, time is continuing forward. That's why we as physical beings experience time as linear. However, if we had the ability to step out of the river and go onto the banks, then we can jump into time at whatever time we want. But the only way that we are able to do that is by leaving our physical bodies, aka passing away or astral projecting, all of that bullshit. So if you are a spiritual being, like your spirit guides, you're a spooky ghost thing.
Specifically only a spooky ghost. If you're a non-spooky ghost, screw you, time travel's not possible.
You can go out of the speed of light because now you're vibrating at a faster speed and time travel. However, now that you're not a physical being, you don't have physical ability to do things in whatever.
Let me also point this out since we're talking about frequency and light existing at a frequency. So if light is what influences our physicality or time and space or frequency at which we exist, when you become a soul or spiritual being, you, like Em said, exist at a higher spiritual frequency. Think of yourself when you're dead or as a spooky ghost, as a gas. You are existing at a high frequency. It is very hard to put more energy into a gas in order to make it to like a plasma or something. Much harder to add energy into particles that already have an exponential amount of energy. It's much easier for you to take energy away in order to change the, composition of the matter itself. So a gas to a liquid to a solid is much easier for a gas to do than it is for a gas to go and do something different. So when you're a solar spiritual being, you exist outside of the frame of time, yes?
Yeah.
So if you're that gas, think about coming into our frame of time or the light itself as changing your physicalness to be less. So
Changing
it's easier, your frequency. So it's easier to go down than it is to go up, which is why time travel would be hard for us because you can't increase the frequency at which you exist. That is where the physical limitations of it are, which is why you'd have to quantify how light exists on physicality, and that's hard.
Which is why people claim to like go into comas or like be able to astral project and go through time, but they can't physically do it.
Oh, I'm so excited about this. It's getting me real excited.
I'm glad, because I definitely blew your mind with parallel universes.
I'm just glad I can be on the same page for one of these. Let's be real. Thank you, Einstein and man who drinks black coffee.
So, we were talking about time dilation, and time dilation, like I said, is based upon the way in which you are moving, how fast, and the gravitational pull surrounding you. So if you were to go somewhere that had a higher gravitational pull, a higher whatever frequency pulling you towards them, then that would create a higher like difference in dilation. So what they theorize is a black hole is something that has a very high density of gravitational pull. So if you were able to go through a black hole, you would be able to theoretically travel through time. But you cannot go through a black hole because it would crush you. We talked about that before. So they theorize that there are things called wormholes, which there are no evidence that wormholes actually exist. But the difference between a black hole and a wormhole is a black hole does not allow anything to come through. It is literally nothingness. It is blackness.
The crushing weight of existence itself.
Yeah. Whereas a wormhole allows things to pass through it. So you should ask him, are those portals?
It's like a swirly slide.
That doesn't answer my question. Is it a portal?
Okay, so like with black holes are just this sort of crushingness of existence itself. Okay. So you got to think about black holes as kind of like quicksand. So the farther down you go, or kind of like water. The farther down you go, the more crushing the pressure is until everything just goes not cool. But wormholes, he's talking about have a figure 8 sort of sequence. So the way in which the energy runs through it is different because of think of like your favorite like donut, you know, the donuts that they make that look like figure 8s. Imagine if before you have it, you twist, like before it's cooked, you twist the dough and it has a slight sort of axis rotational value to it. He says the axis at which the figure 8 is tilted is what gives you that sort of gravitational thing that applies to the theory you're talking about right now. So that, what was it, time dilation?
Yes, time dilation.
Where the relativity of the space, the object, and the directionality of it all align. He says black holes don't have that, but wormholes do because of the way in which their energy or frequency of existence resides in relation to itself. So it's kind of like the Mario Kart track and like the space where you go like over and around. He goes, but every time you were to go over and around, it changes one side of the track to be different from the other.
Oh, got you.
So you can
sort of... is a wormhole a portal?
Yes.
Is that like how portals work? They're like wormholes and they use time dilation to move through space and time?
Yes.
Cool. Can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
Why do spirits use portals?
Because they exist on a frequency in which wormholes allow them to travel through without getting dissociated.
What do you mean by dissociated?
So if we were to travel through time and space, we weren't able to do that because our particles would become dissociated.
Oh, so you're talking about it changes the frequency of the energetic being to be able to be on a certain frequency or moves them to it?
Well, to move through time.
Yeah.
You'd have to change the energetic frequency at which the particles or existent reside. But since spirit exists outside of that, it's sort of like a racetrack of it. It's allowed. Does that make sense?
That's why there's different types of portals, because of the limitation of frequencies. So just like us as physical beings, we can't go up more. We can't raise our frequency past a certain point. Other energetic beings can't do the same thing. So that's why we talk about hell portals. They can come out of a certain
And they feel like black holes, though, because they're lower in frequency, like black holes.
Yeah.
Which is why other beings can't go through them. They have to use more of the wormhole. And because of the space-time, like, gravitational whatever, it allows them to go inside and outside one of the other.
I like how Einstein figured out the mathematics of a portal.
He said he didn't figure out all the mathematics of the portal. Yeah. He said, he's like very much just, oh, he's so sweet. Okay. So we're talking about, like, is time travel real, right? Yeah. And you'd have to figure out the quantified qualifications of how time relates to physicality. He said, I couldn't do that. I was trying to. And he's like, we may never be able to do that. But the fact that you guys are talking about the same ideas and concepts that I was, he says, I was doing the same thing as you, only I just put it in big words.
Yeah, and we're talking to him.
I really love Einstein. He's amazing.
Yeah, because that would just, like, dictate how portals work and why we see different types of portals. Because literally that one portal that, like, opens up and changes its frequency blows my mind. And that makes more sense now that he's describing how wormholes do that with time dilation and how it changes the frequency of things.
Because the way that it shifts on its axis is going to dictate where in which one side starts and then the other side ends.
Yeah.
Which is why it's able to do that, like the donut.
Yeah, he's describing it as, like, when you heat certain elements, they melt, become gases and whatever at different temperatures. So if you have a higher spiritual being, their frequency is higher. So as an element, they would melt at a higher, like, a higher temperature. Does that make sense? So when you go through a portal, it's like a furnace. So if you reach that certain amount of frequency, so if you're a higher spiritual being going through a lower dimensional portal, you are able to go into all of the lower dimensions because your frequency is able to handle the lower dimensions. So if you were a lower dimensional thing trying to go to a higher dimensional thing, you would just like literally evaporate because you would be in a furnace that was too hot for you. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's why when you have more energy, it's easier to go to lower energetic states than it is to higher energetic states. I.e., why scary things always want more energy, because they're trying to get to that higher state, but without it, they can't exist. Which is why if you cut off the scariness, they're like, no.
Yeah, because that's why it's hard for things that are very heavy, because their melting point is a lot lower than a higher spiritual being. So when they try to come up here, it's literally like they are a cloud, and even if they're heavier, they're just like nothing. So the next idea that they talk about is something called a closed time-like curve. And what that is in a closed time-like curve, the world line of an object through space-time follows a curious path where it eventually returns to the exact same coordinates in space and time that it was at previously. So in other words, a closed time-like curve is the mathematical result of physics equations that allows for time travel. Okay, there's different ideas with this closed time-like curve. And one of which is it's impossible, because if you were to go back in time and do things, it would create paradoxes. So, for example, if you were to go back in time and you killed your grandfather, you would not exist anymore in order to go back in time in order to kill your grandfather. So it doesn't make logical sense. So the ideas surrounding a closed time-like curve is the things that you did in the past were meant to happen, similar to how it happened in Harry Potter. So when you watch Harry Potter, all of the things that they changed in when they went back in time happened while they were actually living it the first time. But it's a closed time-like curve because they were in one point where they did the time turner, and then they went through all of the time, and then they closed it where they landed in the same spot. That is a closed time-like curve. So,
meaning they went back in time, but once they got to the point in which they went back in time,
they closed the circle.
Yeah.
So it's basically, if this is the timeline, you want to go back in time, so you go here, and then your time is continuing you forward, and you close the time circle. So you basically create a loop and then continue forward.
Yeah. So everything that happened in the past stops, and it doesn't continue. Like, there's not two of you at the same time.
No, there would be.
I'm confused, but that's okay. Well, there would be two.
Watch Harry Potter.
No,
I just figured out that
it.
she hasn't watched Harry Potter.
I have.
You lied.
I just never watched all of them
in
order from
No, you
start
haven't
to
watched
finish.
all of them.
So when you're going back in time, so like here's where you are, and this is where you want to go back to. So if you go back to here, you're going to be existing with your past self and your future backward self.
Yes.
Up until you get to here, in which this point it goes away, and then you're just existing by yourself again. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I got it.
Got it?
Yeah, good.
That is a closed time-like curve. However, like I just said, that has some logic problems. And Stephen Hawking, he proposed a chronological protection conjecture that the laws of the universe would ultimately be such that prevented any possibility of time travel. Because like I just said, it creates paradoxes. A lot of movies and TV shows that deal with time travel, they talk about, like, you can't do anything because it's going to, like, alter the future crap and create paradoxes. A paradox, when it is in relation to time, they call it a temporal paradox. And it is a hypothetical contradiction of cause and effect within a timeline that results from traveling back in time. So it's a contradiction of something that is possible. If you go back in time, the cause and effect would be broken. So, like I just said...
Because time has happened, is happening, isn't happening. So even if you go back in time, what you already did is already going to be happening. So you can't try to change it. Right?
Well, the idea that Stephen Hawking had is if you go back in time, like I just said, and kill your grandfather is responsible for your existence. You would not be able to exist in the future in order to go back in time to kill that said grandfather. So it doesn't make logical sense for it to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's where he starts talking about paradoxes. Stephen Hawking also did an experiment, which I think is funny, which is why I'm bringing it up, of he had a paradox party, but he advertised after the party happened. Because his theory was if time travel was possible, then people would be able to go to his paradox party.
Stephen Hawking was also a bit of an ass.
Well, yeah, that's why he had a party like that, but I just thought it was funny. He's the skeptic that thought it was unfeasible for time travel to happen because naturally it would prevent paradoxes. So there's a lot of people that theorize that to prevent a paradox, people just were incapable of changing the past. So you going back to kill your grandfather, you would be incapable of doing so because that would literally prevent you from ceasing to exist.
And then would that be like the Scrooge effect of if you travel back in time with the ghosts of Christmas past, you can't physically change anything even though you're there?
Well, yeah, because he astral projected back in the time. Sorry.
We're not talking about the fact that it's actual projection. We're talking about if you were to go back in time, you can only go through yourself. I'm going to call it the Scrooge paradox.
So that's where I get to the idea that it's illogical to think that nature would allow you to create paradoxes because it wouldn't naturally make sense. So before, when I was talking to you about how our dimension is dictated by the speed of light, we as physical beings are restricted by those frequencies. So we are incapable of time travel in a physical manner because we would not be able to go back in time to cause chaos. So like I said before, if you have
only
the ability...
specifically chaos.
So like I said before, if you specifically have the ability to leave your body behind, then you don't have the physical... you don't have the physical way to interact with here anymore. So if you are a spiritual being, you have limitations as well, even though you can time travel within the physical realm in order to like do things, but you still have to go through physical means in order to affect things. So you as a spiritual being don't have the same control as if we were time traveling physically ourselves. So that is how paradoxes don't necessarily happen, but they also make me feel like they might happen, and it freaks me out, and I don't know. You should ask him.
I have a lot of questions about parallel universes because if time travel were
Sorry,
able to
that's the
happen,
next thing that I have.
If time travel were able to happen, then couldn't you just create an alternate timeline?
Yeah, that was the last thing on here. Parallel universes.
Why Stephen Hawking would be correct in the fact that you can't time travel within your own universe, but if you
in your own
do
timeline.
It in your own timeline. But if
Yep.
you were to go and create another timeline, because technically you'd be traveling at a separate frequency in relation to time and space, then you could change a timeline that would alternate the future, but not of your timeline, of one that you create for yourself.
And that's how Marvel movies work. So the last theory that goes around the paradox thing is you would create a separate timeline where you went back into the past and it wouldn't affect the timeline that you were already on. So check out our parallel universes video and then come back to here and you'll understand what we're talking about. But parallel
or
universes
you'll be
exist.
way more fucking confused.
Probably. Parallel universes exist. So theoretically, if we were able to go back in time, we would not alter the timeline that we were just on. We would literally be jumping to another one. And that raises the question of if we are able to go to a different timeline, do we know that we done that? Like, can you like bump into different parallel universes and be on a different timeline without and know about it?
Continue. Parallel
That's
lines.
it.
Can it happen? I don't know. We've already talked about so many things. My mind is blown. This has been fueled by coffee and Einstein and mediumship.
Is this what you expected?
No. I was dreading talking about time travel because I was like, I couldn't even do parallel universes, and I don't think this is physically possible, which still, I feel like it's not physically possible unless there was some sort of like, I mean, that's why you'd have a time machine.
The only reason why I say it could be possible is because you've told me about people talking about stories where they're in time loops. And I don't know what that means.
Oh, the Mandela effect?
And it freaks me. No, a time loop. You literally told me that on, what's that podcast you listen to?
And That's Why We Drink.
You told me that they had a listener story where this guy was like, I am living the same whatever month over and over and over again.
I think he only did it once.
Oh, okay.
So it was more
Still
of a
time
Mandela
loop
effect. Yeah, it makes sense.
A Mandela effect? What do you mean?
A Mandela effect is like where everything is a little bit different, but you remember what it should look like.
I thought he was reliving.
Technically,
a
yes.
Day. That is not the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is, oh, now I like have red hair instead of this color hair. That is a Mandela effect. A Mandela effect is not.
Oh, it's
I'm
an aspect,
reliving.
not
That's
everything?
like deja vu. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you guys like this type of content? If you do, we can cover portals and dimensions. Just put them down here. Let us know if you want us to cover that. And if you want to watch that video, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
And we are your meta PsycKicks. Thank you to our beautiful patrons. If you want to become a Patreon and talk to us on the Discord server and all of these lovely people about things like this, you can look at the link in the description below. And we may or may not have readings available. I know Em has readings available. I'm working on it. I have to find time to get more readings, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you understood what was going on, because I didn't.